Hey everybody, what's going on? So in this section, we're going to show you how to convert your cold emails and get someone to actually schedule the meeting. Now, when you send out your cold emails, people are obviously going to respond. And so in this section, we're going to show you exactly what to do, what to say to get the meeting actually scheduled. So to schedule the meeting, the first thing you got to know is that when you send out cold emails, there are a couple of things that may happen. Prospect may respond positively and they'll just ask for a meeting. Prospect may not respond to your email at all, or the prospect has some type of objection, right? Or a reason why they don't want to take the meeting. So I'm going to give you what's going to happen in every one of these scenarios so you are prepared going in. You sent your emails. What happens now? Well, when somebody responds positively, they might say something like, hey, Patrick, sounds interesting. How about Thursday, 9 a.m. PST? So in this situation, if the prospect responds with the day and time, like I just showed you, of when they are available, you want to ask them what the best number is to reach them at so that you can actually call them during that time and then send a calendar invite. Or you can send the information to your conference line. For example, if you're using something like Uber Conference, which is a software where people can dial in and wait for you on the call. Also let them know that you're also going to send a calendar invite. So I like to do the second option where I do conference calls, even if it's just one person, and have them dial in, and then because you don't have to go back and forth and ask them for their phone number, right? So that's what you want to do, conference call, and then send them a calendar invite. So either way, you always want to send the calendar invite with the agenda of what you guys are going to talk about, just like really briefly, and then it's just a reminder for them to get on the call when time is right. So you can say, hey, John, great hearing for you. What's the best number to reach you at for our call? Once you send that over, I'll go ahead and send you a calendar invite. Looking forward to chatting with you soon. Thanks, Patrick. And that's simple as that if you're asking for someone's phone number. So if you want to opt for the conference line option, right, you could say, hey, John, great hearing for you. Now, here's all the information that you need to dial in for our conference call. I'm going to go ahead and send you a calendar invite as well. So I'm looking forward to chatting with you soon. So you could say something like that if you're doing the option where you're asking the person to dial into your conference line. Now, in scenarios where the prospect does not offer a specific time, what you want to do is you want to reply back with 2 different days and 3 different time slots. The reason why you want to give options is because you want to save time and you just want them to make a quick decision and just pick a time, right? And also you want to show that you're flexible just in case that the prospect doesn't fit any of the times that you give. So an example is, hey, John, great hearing from you. Now, here are a couple times that work for me this week: Wednesday, Thursday, right? So 2 different days, 3 different times. And then go ahead and pick a time that works best for you, and I'll send over a calendar invite with my conference line info. But if none of these times work for you, let me know what does, and I'll work around your schedule. Thanks, Patrick. So if one of these times work, he's going to say, okay, Thursday at 2 p.m. Then you put it on the calendar invite and then send the conference line information, and that's pretty much it. Now, if none of these work, then you could say, oh, he'll tell you a time that works for him, and you just got to work with his schedule. Now, if you don't want to do the back and forth when it comes to asking for time, you could say, hey, John, great hearing from you. Now, here's a link to my calendar where you can schedule a time that works best for you. But if none of these work, let me know what does, and I'll work around your schedule. Thanks, Patrick. So in this example, I'm using a link, right? So essentially, if you're using a different software where it has your calendar and it has an option for people to pick a time and day and when they can schedule a meeting with you, then that also works too. So they could just click here. One of the softwares I recommend is Calendly. And pretty much it's just going to allow people to schedule meetings based on your calendar availability. And once they schedule it, it'll automatically sync everything to everyone's calendar. So Calendly is good. HubSpot has one. Yesware has one. There's actually a lot of options when it comes to this kind of software. So Calendly is one you should just take a look at. If you want to look at others, just type in Calendly competitors into Google and you'll get some different options. So again, that's 2 different ways. If you don't want to use any software, you could just do it the manual way. That's totally fine. I actually did the manual way quite a lot. So, both of them do work. Now, in situations where the prospect does not respond to your email, you do not want to take it personally because sometimes it just gets lost in their inbox. They just forgot to respond, or they had something important at the time and just totally went off the radar, right? Other times, maybe they didn't really read your email and they just didn't realize how much value you were providing, right? Maybe they're just busy. So never take it personally when people don't respond to your email, because there's so many reasons why people don't respond that you just don't know, right? So what you want to do is you want to follow up with the prospect. So the follow-up schedule, like we talked about, is you want to follow up every 3 to 7 days, follow up 3 times per prospect maxed. And if the people don't respond after 3 follow-ups, then you can email them again 3 to 6 months later with a different pitch, hoping that they actually respond to it next time. So an example follow-up is, hey, John, I never heard back from anyone last week. If it makes sense to talk, let me know what your calendar looks like. If not, who is the appropriate person to talk to? Thanks, Patrick. So you just send this one. It's super generic, but it actually does work. Like, so when you send the first email, let's say you get 8% of the people to respond. If you send this follow-up just like this, another 8% might respond. And then the next set of emails, another 8, and then the next set, another 8. That's typically how it works, where when I send my emails, I'll usually have an equal distribution of every time I send a follow-up, it'll get the same conversions as the first initial email that I send. So even sending something as generic as this works really well. If you want to switch it up where the first one will be the first one I showed you, and then the second one you could say, hey John, I wanted to follow up on my email below about helping you increase, and then whatever you said you were going to help them do. If it still makes sense to talk, let me know what your calendar looks like. Thanks, Patrick. So when you send the follow-up, and you're going to do these in an automated way if you want. I mean, you could literally send the same thing 3 times, but you want to vary it, right? So the first one, you might say certain things. Second one, you might have something like this. And then the third one, you might want to change a sentence or two. And then that's pretty much how you want to do it. As long as you keep the same psychology and formatting of these follow-up emails that I'm showing you, your conversion rates will still be pretty much around the same. Now, if the prospect doesn't respond, just let it go, because it's just not a good fit, right? If they're not responding after the third follow-up, emailing them again and again and again, like, there are very rare cases where maybe you'll get the meeting with the right person, but for most cases, if they're not interested after the 4th time you emailed them, they're probably just not interested and your pitch is not good. So you want to try again 3 to 6 months down the line later. You can also try cold calling if you want, but again, cold calling is not scalable, and you don't have their phone number, and I think there's a statistic that only 5% of the people actually pick up the phone when someone calls them. So that's why I don't really recommend cold calling. But if you really want to get into a company, you can. But if you're trying to do it a scalable way, just move on to the next prospect, because you can find other prospects that are going to be a better fit for your product or service. And so with that said, that's pretty much everything we have to cover when it comes to how to handle what happens after you send your first email. You can either follow up with them or schedule a meeting, or if they don't respond, just let it go and move on to the next prospect. So with that said, that's everything we got to cover for this section, and I'm going to see you guys in the next.